Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Triple B Experience podcast. We said it once. We'll say it again. We're not just another podcast. We are an experience. And boy, do we have a show for you tonight. But first, Gary. This man right here is the star of Cable's Cuts and Cable's trailer reaction or showcase. Whatever, we do so many shows, can't keep track of them. But this is Caleb Thomas, a.k.a. Cable. How's it going?
Oh, not bad. How's it going, guys? Feels good to be back. Excited for this interview.
And last but not least, it's the man with the power, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Mr. Triple B himself, Bad Bubba Brewer. Bubs, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good, Mav. Thank you. Hi, Cable.
Hey,
you feel
Bubba.
like the Grand Wizard introducing me. And look, I am very excited about tonight, as we all know, because this is one of my greatest hobbies. And I'm just so excited. So, Mav, the baton is going right to you right now.
Oh, we're going to jump right in. Okay. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Well, let's get into it because, as always, we've got shit to say. Though, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you've been here, seen us or heard us before, depending on where you get your podcast, please keep spreading the word. We laugh, we cry, we entertain. Sometimes we laugh till we cry and it's entertaining.
And I cry after we're done. And then I try to be entertaining after that because I mess up all the time. But I believe this is the first one of the year. Is this the first?
Yeah, this is the first.
The new interview of 2022.
Yeah. Wow. So this is the first actual Triple B Experience podcast we've done. We've done the 3B unscripted, and we've done a bunch of other stuff. But
limited edition.
We do so much. We can't even get our shows right.
Yeah,
that's okay though.
I think one thing we're going to do one time that we're not going to do again is virtual rock paper scissors.
No, we are not.
I think we need to bring that back.
Well, I thought I knew how to play it, but I guess I didn't. And from what I saw on the segment that you cut, that's all over social media, it's not it's radioactive because it's not proactive. Let me tell you that.
What?
I don't know. Hey,
I love it. That was good.
I thought it was just comical, so I thought other people would think it was comical, and I think it got a lot of hits, a lot of likes. So
yeah. My hand's not supposed to go like that on the video, but anyway.
Yeah, you could save that for your personal time.
Yes, thank you.
Anyway, as promised tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest. It's our first comic book artist. Kevin is a local Pittsburgh artist who has recently been nominated for one of the best cartoonists in the burgh. So everybody, welcome Kevin Hilliker to the show. What's up, man?
Hey.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us. We're extremely excited, as you know. We're comic book nerds. But anyway, how are you?
I'm doing great. I am so glad to be here. I'm honored to be here for not the podcast, but the experience. So
God bless you.
Yeah.
But actually, just a little backstory. Kevin and I actually work together. We're in the same department, not necessarily do the same kind of job. His job is way more cooler and fun. Not that I don't like my job. I love my job. However, he gets to work on a lot of cool stuff. But anyway, him and I worked on one project, I think, together. I feel him and I automatically clicked right off the bat. We had the same kind of sense of humor and, a lot of the same interest. But one thing kind of perked my ears a little bit about Kevin was, one of our other colleagues had mentioned to him, hey, man, I really like, the post that you post on Instagram. I love your art. And I'm just, I'm just listening to the conversation, taking it all in. So naturally, I went and stalked him. And then on Instagram, and then my mind was blown. I'm like, what is this? And some amazing stuff on there. And we will get into that. But yeah, man, super excited that you're here. Why don't you start by, telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Kevin Hilliker. I am a local Pittsburgher. And like Gary said, we work together. I'm a senior art director in his department. And by night, I love to draw comics. So it's been a lifelong pursuit. Went to the Art Institute thinking I was going to come out a comic book artist and ended up a graphic designer. So, you know, it was a reasonable substitute. It served me well, but that love of comics never left. And I don't see it going away anytime soon. So it's a source of great frustration and happiness all at the same time.
No, we get it. You know, it's a different take for you, but you know, a lot of, especially with Bubba, I don't know if you could see back there in his room, but how many comic books did you tell us you had, Bubs?
I have 9,680 going, and I still have to add some more, but I have that lovely app. But I just turned my stuff a certain way, so I wanted to be part of the comic book genre with Kevin tonight. So I just turned my studio a certain way, and I got in, and then, you know, it still looks like crap back here. I got a lot of stuff to do, and, you know, just trying to get everything in alphabetized order is very hard. And
in pristine order, by the way. Like, yes. He wears gloves.
I do.
When he touches, like, handles them. And, you know, they're in the plastic. Like, he takes really good care of them. So trust me, if the comic book ever comes out, Jack Titan, which we'll get into, it'll be in pristine condition.
Oh, yeah.
With Bubs. So
yep.
I promise you that. But anyway, yeah, so we, you know, like to start with a little icebreaker here. You know me, Kevin, you know, the human-centered design facilitator, so on and so forth. So, you know, your icebreaker question is, if humans came with a warning label, what would yours say?
Oh.
I can only pick one thing.
Well, you know, yeah, and go ahead, give us whatever you need. Put them on the spot, guys. See,
man, that's what we do here.
It's supposed to get you loosened up, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad this one isn't live because you can edit out my ums. Boy, it would definitely be a warning label about. There's just so many things to pick from, right?
What are you saying? You're not perfect? What?
No, I'm thinking of all of my own faults. That's the problem. All of the reasons people want to stay away from me.
we don't want your self-esteem to drop. So just give us one, you know.
Yeah, no. So I'll say handle with care.
Okay. You know what? I got that sense with you. Yeah. No, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You're a guy that wears your heart on your sleeve. I relate to that as well.
I feel you, Kevin. I do the same thing.
So yeah, we've all been alive in the world the past couple of years. It's like everyone can just calm down just a little bit. Like it'll be okay, right? So anyway, that's it.
I get it. So, you know, I wasn't going to get into this right away here, but anyway, like, so this past year, or actually what, year and a half, whatever it is now, who's counting at this point? You know, has art kind of been your, you know, your stress relief, your outlet, escape? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, in a lot of ways, yes, and it kind of always has been. I think professionally, sometimes, you know, being an art director for agencies, corporations over the course of my career, like I can say that it hasn't provided the most creative outlets at times. It's frustrating. Like I spend most of my day is spent with people telling me what they don't like about what I do and that I have to, right? I mean, and it's not a complaint. Like I signed up for it. I get it. And it makes you better and all of that. But I think coming home in the evenings or on the weekends or whenever it is, it's an opportunity to just do whatever I want to do. There's no budget, there's no restriction, there's nothing. So if I can discipline myself to sit down at the table and start to do the work, that's the only limit. Myself is the only limitation. So
and I like I said, I got that sense with you with what you said, and that's because you're absolutely right. A lot of us do get beat up all day long and criticized, and they always tell us, remember, feedback is a gift. Yes, it is, but sometimes can you just tell me that I did something right the first time, right? So I get it, Kevin. You're in the way worse situation than I am because of the type of work you do. But keep in mind, there's a lot of people that would love to be in your position as well. Like I would love to be able to be creative like that. So I admire that from afar, but I completely understand where you're coming from. But yeah, so, you know, we're not just talking about comic books here and, as a form of art. We'll get into the comic books in a second, but, you do way more than that. Again, like I said, I stalked you and I saw the comic book art and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Automatic follow. And you're probably like, dude, I met you for like 5 minutes. But anyway, you do other things. And whenever I started looking into you more, whenever we decided to have you on, you do graphics, all kinds of icons, photography, all kinds of stuff. So what is your area of expertise or your areas of expertise?
I don't know. I like to make things like with comics specifically, there's just a lot of rigor involved, right? Like it's time consuming. And especially like somebody like myself, like I pride myself in writing, drawing, inking, lettering, coloring, like the whole deal. Like that's because I'm a control freak. And like I said before, I have to relinquish so much control throughout the course of my professional day that I'm gladly selfish for that part of it. But it does manifest in other ways too. Like I just like to make stuff. So over the past 7 months, we moved into a new house. Gary, I was telling you about that. Yep. I have a small garage, so I started like making furniture.
Nice.
Something I've always wanted to do.
Now you're speaking my language, woodworking and stuff like that. All right.
So there you go. So we can talk about that. But so I just like to build stuff and make stuff, like making something out of nothing, right? With comics, there wasn't a universe, there wasn't a story, there weren't these characters, and all of a sudden, with some time and patience and effort, there is, and you can do things with them. And other people, like being on this podcast, it's amazing to me. I don't have anything published really, like technically, but the fact that you looked at it and saw it and responded to it and was interested in it, it just means so much. And like that, you just can't manufacture that feeling otherwise.
No, I get that. Like I said, I had, and actually I approached you months ago about this, and I talked to these guys about you too. And I'd sent them your Instagram stuff, and we're like, oh yeah, we got to have it on. And then we got busy and we did like a ton of interviews, and then we kind of like took a little break around the holidays, and then into this, the beginning and part of the year. And then I ran into you the other day when we were in the office, a rare occasion when we're in the office, and I didn't get a chance to catch up with you. Like we talked like briefly. I was in the middle of a conversation and I didn't catch you before I left again. And I'm like, what are we doing? I got to get Kevin back on here, or, get Kevin on here. So real quick, we're going to get into the comic books here. I'm sure these guys have some questions, but let's start with, obviously we were impressed to have you on here, but take us back. Like, where did it all start? Like what is your first, memory of comics, or when did art and comics become a thing for you?
Yeah, well, it was simultaneous. So, I mean, and comics is the reason, as a little kid, I can remember I'm probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old. I'm just a little guy. So it's like the late 80s, and my dad loved comics, loved the X-Men, Spider-Man, like all the Marvel stuff. My dad was on board, and still is. So, it's something that we've shared throughout the course of our life together, and something that he kind of just ingrained in me early. I mean, I saw him reading them. The books caught my attention, obviously, as a little kid, and I picked them up and would just thumb through them. And I loved them so much. And I always liked drawing. I was drawing cars and motorcycles and trains, like that kind of stuff as a little kid. And it just naturally turned into having a comic book open at the dining room table and my drawing pad next to me, and like doing my best to just copy, Jim Lee, something like that. And, and that was how I learned, just copy. So, just having all of these different comics over time and just copying the pages out of those comics. And they became one and the same, it was just something that was always there. And, there weren't comic book stores. I mean, there were comic book stores. I didn't go to any. My dad didn't go to any. It was spinner racks at the grocery store. Kind of thing,
Yeah.
So like whatever they had. So they might have X-Men 272. And then the next month, like 73 might not be there. So it might be 74 or 75 after. And so I grabbed that, and you're trying to like figure out what happens in between. Right. And so in my mind, I kind of love that stuff, because like it makes you more invested. Like, it's like in my kid imagination, I'm figuring out, I would draw my own in between issues, you know, like trying to figure out like what would happen. And so it just kind of, that experience of like consuming the comics and making the comics, it was all just part of it, each other, you know, it wasn't ever separate.
Kevin, was it just comics, or was it like animated series? Was it movies and stuff too, or you know?
Yeah, for sure. So my parents were like, when I was younger, it was very much like, you know, I couldn't watch movies with like lots of language, you know, like that kind of thing. They're very, my mom especially was like, no, you're not watching Terminator 2. You know. But what I would do is they would have like these like Entertainment Tonight shows or whatever it was, where you get like clips or like trailer shows, you know, and I'd like every night I'd watch those and like try to, again, figure out what the movie was about, piece it together in my own way, make a comic about it, write a story about it, you know. So yeah, I mean, really any of those things. I mean, comics, movies, cartoon shows, I mean, you name it, man. All the stuff that we're all of a similar age, it looks like. I mean, He-Man, Thundercats, Silverhawks, Mask, Turtles. I was on board with all of it, you know.
Nice. Well, you just gave Bubba a compliment, but he does look damn good for his age. Bubba's actually just turned 50.
Yeah, I just turned 50. So
nifty at 50. You know,
yeah. So Kevin, if you don't mind me asking you real quick, who and what? Because you did say Jim Lee. Now, did Jim Lee influence you into drawing? Was he one of them, or is there a whole spectrum? Because in the early 90s, there was a lot of great artists.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I would say whole spectrum. You know, like we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but my parents were super enthusiastic about my love of drawing, and they were really supportive of it, and tried to help me out like any way that they could. So they would buy me lots of like books. I actually have on my shelf over here, I have a book. It's like Fantasy Illustrated or something, where it's just like a bunch of random fantasy illustrations, styles, paintings, some comic drawing. There was some like a little bit of manga stuff in there, like from the 80s, but it was just kind of like this eclectic grouping of illustrations, and they would have like little blurbs, but that's all it really was. And they would gift me a few of those, you know, over the course of the year, birthdays, Christmas, that kind of thing. So it was comics, it was things like that. It was newspaper comics. I mean, Calvin and Hobbes. I mean, I have, you know, multiple versions of the collection sitting behind me. So Bill Watterson is a huge influence. Dick Tracy was a huge influence, the comics. Like when the movie came out, I think it was, well, I can't remember what publisher it was. They started publishing Chester Gould's old comics in color, like, but in comic book form. And there are several that did that, but they started doing it in like the late 80s, early 90s. I had a bunch of those, you know, just loved it. So yeah, it kind of came from all over.
Okay.
Well, I got a question. Go ahead, Bubba.
I just wanted to say real quick, did you always have that book, How to Draw the Marvel Way?
You know what? I didn't see that book until I got to college. I was at the Art Institute. They had it in the library, and I checked it out. It's funny. I was just at New Dimension Comics in Cranberry, and there's a shameless plug there, but
that's okay.
I'm not
great store.
Yeah, I'm not on their payroll, but I just saw a reprint of it there, and I almost got it because I was like, man, I haven't seen this in a while. But yeah, I never had any of those tutorial books, so I didn't know they existed. You know, there's nowhere for me to get them. It was comic books off the rack, man. That was how the way was copying Liefeld and Jim Lee. That was it.
I understand.
Well, like you mentioned earlier with the spinner racks, I have this vivid memory. I used to go camping, as a kid a lot, and Gary's been there. He knows that there's not much to do when you go camping. So I lived off of this one little convenience store outside of camp that had a spinner rack. And every couple of days, because we'd go for a week at a time during the summer. So every couple of days I want to go in. And there's this Green Lantern issue from when I was a kid with Kyle Rayner on the cover. And he's got the scythe, he made it with his ring and everything. And I'll remember that cover for like the rest of my life. Is there a comic cover that is like that for you? Like, is there one that's just burned into your brain that you'll always remember, or are there just too many?
I love that.
Yeah, Yeah, for sure. The one of the earliest comics that I can remember, and the cover got ripped off because I was just born, but I have subsequently bought it. But it's X-Men. It's a Jim Lee issue. I can't remember the exact number, but it's Wolverine. He's got like a loincloth on, and he's like, it's like an uppercut shot to homeboy with the rings. The
Mandarin.
The Mandarin.
Mandalorian. Right? The Mandarin, yeah.
Mandarin, yeah.
The Mandarin, the OG with the costume, not the Mandalorian. But
yeah.
It was that one, like for me, it was just so fantastic, you know. And I can remember that issue specifically, like trying to figure out like who Psylocke was. Like she seemed evil, but like Wolverine seemed to be buddies with her, and like I just
that's when she was getting to be a trained assassin.
Yes, and it was like, and that whole the whole run. I mean, it's so good. But to answer your question, that cover is one I think of. A lot of those Lee covers from like those early X-Men when he started his run, what were just so like the one with Havoc when he's like got his like fist up and he's like destroying the logo and there's like all those like robots and stuff behind him. I think that's 271. Just good stuff all the way around. Jim Lee at the height of his powers. It was so good.
Yeah, those X-Men comics were iconic, like you said. There's a lot of covers that stand out. You know, right, and that animated series was a piggyback off of the comic designs, you know, so
100%.
Kevin, so do you have a lot of comics still? Like, do you still collect, or do you mentioned you went to the comic book store, you said you had some stuff back there, so are you like a Bubba that have a ton of comics, or do you just, you know
what, I don't. I mean, you know, I had kids super young, so that that curtailed a lot of spending early on. You know, I have all this stuff. I've never gotten rid of a thing. You know, I have all the stuff that I have from when I was young, and it was a small collection because, like I said, we didn't have a lot of resources. But really, I cherish that small collection. You know, and so the stuff I have now, I do get some newer titles. I'm not like a Wednesday Warrior. But there are some newer titles that I do get. Mostly the comics I buy now are $1 bin or less. I'm looking for older stuff.
$2.58.
There you go. Yeah. That's it, man.
Yeah. You're a man speaking above his heart right now.
Yeah, he probably has it back there somewhere.
I have it. I have that whole Jim Lee collection because I have a lot of X-Men, but yeah, I have a lot of stuff, but I don't have as much as I thought I did. So, and actually, you know, Kevin, you're smart when you get in the $1 bin because now they're almost $5 an issue. So it's just crazy.
I know. Well, and that's why I just there's just a few that I get now, and it sounds real snobby. I'm not trying to sound, you know, snobby about it because, it sounds that way, but it's, you know, I'm pretty choiceful with the newer stuff that I get.
Yeah.
What are you looking for? Are you looking for art? Are you looking for storyline, like a particular style? Like what
is there a character that speaks out to you that you always want to keep up with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what, and I was hoping you guys were gonna ask this question because it's one that I spend a lot of time with, just, you know, in my own head about it, and really it's creators. You know what I mean? So I'm not buying any comic because I like that character. And I don't know if it's just because of the young age, I just identified with especially with the art side of it. And then quickly, so just for reference, I was born in 81. So like when the Image guys start, I mean, I'm like 11, 12 years old. So like, I'm ready to go. Right. Mm-hmm. So like I've had a little bit of primer with some, you know, my dad's X-Men and Spider-Man stuff. And then like when, you know, like Todd McFarlane, I found out he was getting his own book. Right. And I love those Spider-Man books that McFarlane worked on. I loved Eric Larson. I actually like Larson. I still like Larson's Spider-Man better than McFarlane's. I think
it's better.
Yeah. I mean, like you talk about some of my favorite issues. It was, you know, it was like I think it was 275 or something, where it's double sized. He's Peter Parker's like fights Dr. Doom in this epic fight because there's like a cat burglar or something that reminds Peter of like his uncle, and he can't bring him to justice and all these things. But the fights were so good, and that was a Larson issue. And I just, even as a kid, I just, you know, I would follow that guy wherever he went, you know. So that remains, you know, where no matter where the creator kind of goes, I'll follow him. You know, so like I'll give you an example, like a newer guy. I love Daniel Warren Johnson. I was reading him when he did Space Mullet, when it was a web comic. And then he got some books at Image, and, you know, does Extremity and does, Murder Falcon. And he recently did Wonder Woman Dead Earth. He did a Beta Ray Bill series most recently for Marvel. I don't read Beta Ray Bill. I don't read Wonder Woman comics. I bought those because he did them. You know, I love his interpretation of characters. James Herron is another one, does Rumble. He has a new book called Ultra Mega that's out right now. That guy's artwork is just absolutely dynamic and incredible. And he's writing those new issues too. So it's all him. And it's just, I love that like unique bent that one or two guys can put on a book, you know. And it's probably why, like, I'm gravitate to the movie directors and things that I do as well. You know, like a Wes Anderson movie, a Tarantino movie, a Christopher Nolan movie. I'm drawn to that kind of entertainment because it just feels like such a singular experience. And it's
their creative force.
I love
tied into that person, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's a creator's world right now. Because I mean, you had it like, you know, Jim Lee obviously name drop, Liefeld and a couple other guys, Frank Miller. But nowadays, like you hear Jason Aaron's Thor, and you know that collective of the time he spent with that is solid. Or, you know, when Hickman came into the X-Men, like it's just got the name value now where maybe it didn't, or it wasn't as widespread back in the day.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. Like, so now, but now I get to go back and revisit. You know, like I said, I like to buy older comics. Like when I was a kid, my dad didn't buy Thor, so I didn't read Thor. I don't know much about Thor other than the movies I've seen, right? But I love Walt Simonson now that I'm older and I know who Walt Simonson is, and I respect what he's done. So I go back and buy 40 issues of Walt Simonson's Thor because it's spectacular. But it's him. If it was somebody else, it's not so much the story that's really connected me. I'll pull them out like when I was a kid and I'll kind of scan through most of the comics I buy. I'm scanning through them, but I'm looking at the art. You know, I'm watching how the art progresses. I'm looking for storytelling tricks. I'm looking to see how they consolidate things. Just that visual language that these guys use. It's always different. And there's always things to learn, regardless of when they were made. So, that's how I usually interact with my comics now.
Now, Kevin, if the visual of the artwork is not up to your par, would you actually purchase the comic to see it the whole way through to read it? Because sometimes I don't like, if the artwork's not good for me, I'm not getting it based on even the character or whatever, because I have inclinations on character designs of the Hulk or Spider-Man or Captain America, stuff like that. If the artwork's not that good, I won't get the book. Even though it could be well written, but the artwork, the visual is what I'm about sometimes, most of the time.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And totally respect people who aren't like that. I mean, I'm very, very art oriented, you know, but I'm also, but those like early Image books, right? Outside of, I'll argue that Eric Larson's Savage Dragon. I mean, Eric Larson is a comic book guy. All he ever wanted to do was make comics. The other guys had other ambitions. Good on them, you know, fair on them. But Eric Larson's still drawn. I don't read it anymore, but he's still, you know, I have my run of Savage Dragons probably close to 100 issues. But after that, I kind of fell off, and it just, you know, you go through. I mean, he's been doing it for 30 years. I mean, you kind of go through ebbs and flows, and you dip out and dip back in every once in a while. But I just respect that part of it. It's all he wanted to do. And so I think, therefore, his book was treated with the most care. And he had I think he had the best chops of all of those guys. He knew what he was doing. He could visually tell a story better than any of those guys. He could write better than any of those guys. And it was a character that he'd been working on for decades up to that point. You know, Dragon was something that existed when he was a kid. So, you know, I love that.
And I believe he's still doing it himself, and he doesn't hire out or have anybody else do something for him like McFarlane does in Spawn. So
right. Yeah, correct.
Kudos to him.
Yeah, he just loves it. It was funny. Like Savage Dragon was one of those things. There's like different moments where, they're like markers, like anything else. And I remember a marker for me when it came to drawing comics and making comics. Again, it's pre-internet. Nowadays it's like you can go, like I didn't know how to build furniture, so I go on YouTube for a few months, and I can collect information. It's a beautiful thing. It's one of the best things about the internet, right? We all complain about the downfall of, the negative things that the internet brings to us, but there's a lot of good things.
Right.
But back then that just didn't exist. So I'm a little kid out in, just outside of Buffalo, small town. There's not a lot to do. I can't go anywhere. I have my bike and that's about it, but there's no corner store I can ride to. It's pretty rural. So I'm on my own, and you got to figure this stuff out. So it's, looking at somebody's Wizard magazine on the school bus. Or
I love that magazine.
Yeah, right.
Me too, man. It was like the dark web to me back then. I was like, oh my goodness, these things exist. But but now I look back, it's like totally cheesy. But back then it was like, it opened up this world to me that I just didn't know existed. So I'm reading in the back of one of Larson's. It was like in the mini series for Savage Dragon. I'm trying to figure out how to make comics and like what you do, because it's hard. Mm-hmm. And he had this essay that explained his house had recently burned down, and I don't know if you guys know this, but he had lost everything. Like his family was unharmed, but I think he pretty much got out with like the shirt on his back. But he had all of these old drawings and comics and all these old Dragon comics when he was a kid, and it was all gone. All destroyed. And so he talked about that, but he talked about, and I'm reading this at my grandparents' house where I would spend a lot of time. My parents, were working, and I would spend a lot of time in the summers at my grandparents' home. At my grandparents reading this, I remember, because he was talking about being at his grandparents' house, just kind of like making comics and figuring it out. And it was so inspiring to me. And I was like, here's this guy who's like doing it. And this guy drew Spider-Man. He's drawn Savage Dragon, who I had just discovered and was really excited for it. And and he's talking about when he was my age and just kind of sitting at his grandparents' table, figuring it out, and like, that was like revelatory to me. Like it gave me like permission to say like, yeah, you can just go ahead and just make the thing. Nobody has to tell you can or can't, just go make it. So
that's interesting. That's an interesting take on all of that. Like from the way you choose comics to the way that you're relating to certain artists. Yeah, no, that's incredible. I just want to make a note real quick. You mentioned about YouTube, going on YouTube and finding whatever. I often do, how to fix things, how to build things, whatever. I haven't gone on there to figure out how to draw yet, because I'd love to be able to do that, but I'm sure it's there. But maybe an idea for the future, we can do a Triple B with a twist, and you could actually get on here and teach us how to draw and all that kind of stuff. Just throwing it out there. But anyway, let's get into your style a little bit here. Because you have a unique style, and I think a lot of the artists that you mentioned don't have that style per se. Some of them do, some of them don't. But why don't you get into that and how you, is that your preferred style, or what's the approach there?
Yeah, it's I think the ideal state is a place where you can make something and it feels like you're your own, but you're always in your own head. So like there's probably 20 different artists that influence me in a huge way. And on any given day when you're drawing something, I can recognize those things in my own work, right? And sometimes it feels like I'm ripping somebody off. Sometimes it doesn't. And you just kind of learn to deal with that. But it just takes time. And that's what I mean about like just making something, right? It doesn't just draw itself. You have to just put in the time and put in the effort. It's the only way to do it. But those guys they're kind of always with you. You're just it's all of those years, all of those thousands of hours looking at comics, the same comics over and over and over until they're like imprinted in your brain and you can start to repeat those things, right? And so as a kid, you learn a lot of bad habits looking at superhero anatomy and other things. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and disparage Rob Liefeld. I love Rob Liefeld. I don't care what anybody says. The same things that people say about Rob Liefeld were said about Jack Kirby, that he can't draw anatomy. It doesn't look real, but at the same time, like when I think of him, and I just think of energy and action and color, and, it gets me pumped. And that's what it should do, at least for me. Right. If I want anatomy, I can go look at, the Renaissance painters or something and get that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, to best answer your question, Gary, mostly, you hate everything that you draw. It's just the way you make it. And you're like, this is terrible, but you learn to put that aside. Right. And for so long, that was something that just held me back. And that's when I say, when it's a source of frustration, it can be debilitating. It can cause people just to put it down altogether and quit it, because, and this sounds really, I don't know, selfish or whatever, but in the moment, it's just work. It's just, and sometimes you push through and you can draw page after page and it doesn't click. You don't like it. But I know that when I go back and look at it 6 months, a year later, I'm like, actually, this wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's like, so in preparation for the stuff I'm working on now I work all digitally now, but to give you a sense, and I know we're on a podcast, but this is like a year and a half.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Wow.
That awesome. Nobody will ever see. This is just.
How long does it take
right?
you?
Like,
how long does it take you, Kevin, to do a page, like one page of comic art? How long would that actually take you? Maybe before the computer stuff, like by pencil.
I would say if I could sit down and just work straight through, I could lay out and pencil and ink a page, maybe letter one, depending on how many words there are, maybe in a day. Maybe 10, 12 hours.
Oh, wow. Holy
jeez.
But sometimes, sometimes longer. Sometimes it comes easy. Sometimes it doesn't. It could take, a couple days. It just depends.
So how often do you sketch and is it daily or, what how's that work? How do you fit in your life at this point?
Yeah. So, recently it's been it's been challenging, Gary. I think I may have shared with you before. There was just some family health things that my family was going through. We were, moved into a new house. It's been several months since I don't even know when my last post on Instagram was. It's months.
Yeah, I know it's been a while. I've been waiting.
So, but it's when things are clicking, and I'm really hoping to get back into it very soon here, because things have settled down and things are going well. So, but it's it's daily, hopefully, because it's easy to fall off. Mm-hmm. It's discipline to go to the drawing table, because a lot of times you don't feel like it. As much as I love it, it can be daunting. And like I said, it's work. And especially if you're working a full-time job and you got kids and you have a wife and you have, other stuff to fix around the house and other things, like by the time you can carve out that time, it's either I'm getting up at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning to hit it, or you're doing it in the evening and kind of burn that midnight oil, when usually I'd much rather be sitting there watching Netflix or something, So
yeah,
it's just figuring out what your priorities are, which I don't meet them all the time. So I'll get wrong, but
do you have a drawing pad with you at all times when you think of ideas at that time, that maybe you can sketch them out like real quick to give you some kind of design when you have time to do the comic art?
Yeah, for sure. Especially when I used to be like at an office, I would definitely have some tools and things with me just to kind of sketch ideas out. It's what's great about working from home is, I'm here like in the battle station, right? Like my work stuff is here, but like I do everything on my iPad now. It's sitting right next to me. I got my other, traditional drawing tools sitting right over here. All my comics are surrounding me. So,
nice.
It's easier now to kind of when something pops in that you can just throw it down on paper. But
So how much time do you spend drawing instead of working on a usual day? I won't tell.
No, it's good. I mean, honestly, I'm a very compartmentalized person. I try not to mix, mix those boxes up too much. So
No, I'm just messing with you.
Has switching to digital cut down time at all, or does that take longer somehow? Which is the easier, more streamlined way to do it?
Yeah, you know what? I held out against going digital for a long time. Like I really liked having ink under my fingernails and like feeling how those different pens would feel different way and just different papers felt different way. It all sounds super pretentious, but for me it was like a real thing. Like because it was one of those things where just some of that stuff just brings you back to being a kid and being younger, and everything kind of falls away. But about a year and a half ago, I did get an iPad Pro, and it's pretty incredible. So I do everything in Procreate. What I found out quickly though was the tools are so endless that you can get lost in like which tool to use. So I bought quite a few brush packs and ink packs and different things. They're fantastic, but I've really kind of like Procreate allows you to curate your different tool palettes. So I spent a couple weeks going through and just finding out which tools I wanted and tried to mimic my favorites that I have in real life and just be disciplined and just use those digitally.
So do you start out with paper and pencil, and then transfer it to your iPad, or do you just go straight to the iPad at this point?
Straight to the iPad at this point.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
It's all done. It's all done right there.
Huh.
Let me ask you another question, Kevin. When you were like drawing and you were looking at something when you were younger and you looked at, say, a comic book cover and you drew stuff like that, did you ever have like a mental block that you'd have to look at the cover to draw it? Because this is what's always happened to me in my life. I'd have to look at something to draw it. I cannot do something just freehand and then there's a picture of Spider-Man like that. I don't know what it was in my life, but it was a mental block, and it always made me suffer of drawing to get to a higher level. Like I could copy a comic book cover,
Yeah, public
it was
draws,
okay,
it does, yeah.
but it was not where I could not look at it and draw it out because it just something was up here. It wasn't clicking. Did it ever happen to you, or you just with all the practice, you could look at a Spider-Man without even seeing it, and then you could draw it and go from there, or Savage Dragon or anything like that?
Yeah. What you're describing, Bubba, is totally accurate. I mean, I remember those early comics that I would kind of put together. I would find a panel that I liked drawn a certain way and copy it, and then I knew kind of what I wanted for the next panel and find another one that existed that kind of would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's how you kind of figure it out. And I think it's building that language and that toolbox, kind of that internal toolbox, just over and over. It's just that repetition over and over. To be totally honest with you, I'm only at the point now where I'll say this, I'm the most confident I've ever been, right? And hopefully that continues to be the case, because it means you're growing and getting better. But it's only in the past few years that I feel like I have a pretty good control over, like I can kind of achieve any sort of scene that I'm thinking in my head.
Gotcha.
Not to say it doesn't get there without some work and some frustration sometimes, because it's certainly the case. But yeah, it kind of, that part never really, it's never easy. It's never easy.
Okay. It never was. It never was for me. It never is. And I do that as like a stress reliever. And also when I do that, it was for the little kids to just put it up on their wall kind of stuff. That's how I did it. And I just something to do to, you know what I mean? But I always a mental block for me. So you actually answered my question. So
it's hard. And you'll see, like there's sketchbooks. I mean, Gary, you asked me about style things before. I mean, I'm really flattered that you said that about my style, that it feels unique and like that. I mean, that's huge to me. But there's definitely, I have sketchbooks over here where, you can see where I went through my Frank Miller phase. I went through my Paul Pope phase. You know, like I went through those phases where it's like all the stuff that I'm doing looks very much like I would wear my influences on my sleeve in a very real way for a long period of time. And then it would be frustrating because I'd be really into Paul Pope, right? And I'm like loving his work so much, and all my stuff's looking like it. And then after like 5-6 months, it's like, but I really kind of like this guy over here now, and I'm a creator guy. So it's like, I'm like, but this guy's style doesn't look like this guy's, and I'm drawing like this for a while. And so you kind of become like this chameleon. And at some point you do have to make a decision. Like, no, I can take little bits and pieces from this guy and a bit from over here. But at the end of the day, you've got to kind of make it your own somehow.
No, that's interesting. So let's kind of talk about the two main characters that you kind of came up with. So let's talk about Jack Titan and Dark Lunas. So first, which one came first, and at what part in what stage in your life did you come up with these characters and kind of create them?
Yeah, so Jack Titans certainly was first, and it wasn't all that long ago. It was a few years ago, really. And then the Dark Luna stuff was kind of I needed a little break from the Jack Titan work. I'd gone through a stretch where I'd submitted. I've been submitting it around a little bit. Done some webtoons work with Jack Titan, not a lot, but there was a contest submission. And I just worked a ton to like make that, because there was a deadline. I didn't find out about it until there was like 5 weeks left or something. I had to have like all of these pages done.
Oh my!
So I needed a break from the Jack Titan stuff, and so Dark Lunas was a way for me. It was just something new, something kind of just made up on the spot, kind of making pages up as I'm going, But through doing that exercise, it was something that I really saw some potential in, and thought that, if I ever got to a place where I'm pitching these works, that it would definitely be one that I would like to revisit at some point.
Gotcha. So these weren't characters like that you were drawing or sketching out as a kid or anything, or had, envisions of as a kid. Okay.
No.
Gotcha. So what made you settle on that particular style for these characters that you made up?
Like just like how they look visually, how they look.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the Jack Titan stuff, like like everything's connected, right? Like the visual style tells a lot about the tone of the book, probably chiefly, and so there was a point in time where I was kind of lamenting the fact that, all of these comics, pop culture in general, like we're all so educated with pop culture now. Everything is so self-referential. Everyone knows everything. There is, you could throw an obscure reference out there. Half the people are going to get it. But I see that kind of coming in with comics. Like I was in the comic book store the other day, and I won't name the title, but there's a comic on the shelves right now that is so clearly influenced by Eric Larson. And I love Larson. I could recognize the art immediately as somebody who loves Eric Larson as much as I do. But at the same time, it's like a tongue-in-cheek version. It's well done. The art's really good, but all of it is just like everything. I shouldn't say everything, but like a lot of things are now where it's like a callback to the 90s or a callback to the 80s. And it just feels like it's nothing new. It's just like a wink and a nod, like, hey, remember when this was cool? And now this is like kind of a newer twist on it, a new spin on it. But it all feels so aware of itself. And like, to me, that's so distracting. And so I was going through like all of these thoughts a few years ago, and there was a bunch of stuff that was out there that was like that. And then on the other side, it was, it was stuff that was just like too serious, right? Like everything was just like so just taking itself very seriously. And it's funny because I remember that was the knock against, at the time, like comics in the 90s, like everything's so dark. And it's like, you go read an issue of Brigade now, and it's like, dude, this is like a joke, like in the best way, but it's like, this is not serious at all. I know everyone's grimacing. I know that there's like some blood and things, but like comparatively to now, it feels like very light and very fun. And that wasn't necessarily the viewpoint of it at the time. So maybe in 20 years, I'll prove myself wrong. But Jack Titan itself was kind of, making the comic that I wanted to see on the shelves, right? I wanted to see something science fiction based that was, that had a lot of heart and that was maybe a little bit funny, but definitely had that action and that drama that I was looking for. So, like that good balance between everything, but something that wasn't just like telling you what a cool reference it was to these other things, right? It's lofty, I get it. And again, probably sounds kind of pretentious, but I was just frustrated because I wanted to see something and I wasn't finding it anywhere. And so I thought,
did it yourself.
Yeah.
So do it yourself. But as far as the actual line work and things like that, I mean, it's really, I love like those bolder lines, like lines filled with a lot of life. So I'm thinking of stuff like Bill Watterson with Calvin and Hobbes. I'm thinking of like Frank Miller, a lot of his inking techniques. Paul Pope has a real lively brushstroke, but there's kind of like a sketchiness to it as well, like a real like an energy there, that is hard to kind of capture. So, I try to do it as quick as I can, as quick as I'm able, and it kind of is able to retain some of that life that I'm looking for. Otherwise, you kind of kill it and bog it down with just too much fuss, and it just feels heavy.
So I know you don't have a physical comic book yet, but do you have full stories mapped out of Jack Titan or even Dark Lunas? Do you have full like comic book? I'm talking about like script, drawing, everything.
Yeah, so I do. I've been working on. I mean, the goal for Jack Titan. I'm a little bit behind with my own timeline, but the plan right now is to release it because it's a great age that we're living in, right? Like before, you had to go, to an independent publisher or have Image pick it up or something like that. Still would be, definitely a possibility, but with things like self-publishing and Kickstarter and Amazon and other, like there's ways to get your books out to people without having to ask permission from, Jim Valentino at Image Comics or something.
And you don't have to sell yourself short, and you can do it how you wanted to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And if they don't like it for whatever reason, if it's just not good enough, I can still get it out, right? So the plan is to do to have a website. So I have some things that aren't online yet, but it's designed. It's putting together all those pieces. So the website's designed. The story is moving along. There's some artwork in the works, but to have I'm trying to build up a cachet so that I'm working a couple months ahead of time so I can stay on schedule. So it's just building up that backlog. It's what I'm in the process of right now. So the goal, and it's probably a bit lofty, but the goal is to have maybe 8 to 12 pages a month, right? And if I can do that for a month, it's roughly, we'll call it 120 pages over the course of a year, right? And that's probably 6 issues, which is Image usually runs like 6-issue yearly series. It's kind of how their cadence works. But what I'd love to do is then collect that yearly work in a Kickstarter or some kind of crowdfunding or something like that at the end of the year. So build up an audience, through the website, through newsletter, Instagram, all of those kind of regular digital social media means, and then then have an audience to hopefully be interested enough to maybe purchase a physical book that, with my design background, I can fully design myself. I know printers in the area, so all of those design skills that I have as well that I've collected over 2 decades can be put to use to really help me out with this. And I think that's something that helps me that maybe other comic artists don't have, like that design side. They're not great designers. Like a lot of books aren't designed in a great way. So that's something that I would like to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really hope that happens. We'll put it over like gangbusters if you do. Trust me. Yeah, go ahead, Bubs.
Your expertise in your job can actually benefit you in the comic book stage of doing the comic book art to get your book out there and knowing what you have to do. Now, let me ask you a question, Kevin. Now, both of your books, are they both in the same universe, or are they in two different universes, or could you combine them? Two different separate universes.
Yeah, completely different.
Okay. Now, when you made your Jack origin story, did you already have his backstory ready to go, or is that going to be the premise of the comic book telling the origin of Jack Titan?
I have enough of a nugget that I feel comfortable moving forward, and then I'm confident that some of it, if ever, will be revealed over time. Like as new things. So what I try to do with my outlines is I have the year's worth of stories mapped out, right? So I have a year's worth of stories, and I break that down into 12 chunks to make up the duration of a year, and then within those chunks, trying to have a good beginning, middle, end, right? And so when it comes to backstory and other things like that, I'm concerned with it as far as the plot goes, but I'm more focused on building sympathy for the characters and building those relatable qualities that people can kind of latch onto immediately. And then other plot stuff kind of will come along. I have some of it, as much as I'm aware, figured out. Sometimes it changes, but I try to have a framework and operate within that framework, because it allows you to not kind of go off the rails down the road. And that happens where I've said, I'm sick of wasting so much time figuring things out. I just want to dive in and do it. And you kind of run out of steam halfway through because you get to a point where you just don't know where to go. So I'm trying to fight that by having a good framework for things, but also allowing myself to have enough flexibility within that framework where, if I get 50 pages in and it's like, oh, I got this other idea for this thing over here, I can totally do that, and throw out some of what I had before and be able to incorporate maybe this new idea. So that's what I'm trying to do.
So Kevin, when you mean mapping out, like you said, mapping out a year's worth of story, is it actually sitting down at your computer and writing a script, or is it like kind of like storyboarding? Like what does that look like? What's that approach?
Yeah. So scripts, no script. But I'll get pretty tight plot wise. So, I'll have kind of a story arc. So, how I'm kind of envisioning this is it would be great at the end of the year for the printed piece to be, something substantial, but I'm thinking about it like how Hellboy or Tintin, you kind of have these characters. There's a longer story overall, but you do have these kind of self-contained books as well that take, over the course of a smaller, 3, 4, 5, 6 issue series, right? Mm-hmm. So I have the plots for those pretty well mapped out.
Like in your head, or what do you mean by mapped out?
I use Google Docs. So okay. I kind of have a running list. So I have the main story arc broken down. I have the main points that I want to hit. Usually I have scenes or lines of dialogue or something that's like in my head all the time. I just kind of make a list of those things.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious, like what comes first? You actually sketch it out and then put context to it, or like you said, the Google Docs, and then you can envision it and draw it.
Yeah, well, but that's where this big stack of paper comes in handy. So I mean, in preparation for this, I've been working like for 2 years on this, making pages, figuring out how it feels, feeling how the stories go, knowing where I don't want to go. So I have a lot of the information stored up in my mind already because I've done the work. I can go back and reference it. I can pull the pieces that I like and get rid of the things that I don't. And I feel like now I'm in a place where I can figure out what I really want this world to be, who I want the characters to be, and what I want them to do in that space. So I kind of have all of that bulleted out, and I have a structure. I have a really good, it's around here somewhere. I have a really good like little screenwriting book. Yeah. I mean, I have like just like a bunch of stuff like this. So a lot of like film things, right? Where it's not, I mean, a lot of this is like totally applicable to building like a solid 3-act structure and building sympathy for characters and, making sure that, your scenes make sense in various ways. So it's just kind of incorporating all of that work in before I hit the drawing board. Then once I do, I usually have a pretty good idea of what needs to happen within each 10-page chunk. And so then I can break that down from there and say, okay, if my end goal at the end of these 10 pages is here, I know that I need to, kind of work backwards and say on page 9, 8, 7, 6, like these things need to happen. I need to hit these beats on these pages and kind of break it all down that way down to the page. And then when I'm in the page, then I can figure out, okay, now the page needs to break down panel by panel this way, right? The beginning of the page is A, the end of the page is B, and I need to figure out how to get there. And along the way, as I've been thinking about the plot, the story, and kind of how these things are coming together, I'm jotting down notes regarding dialogue, what I want some of the characters to be saying. And I kind of just figure that out as I'm doing it. Sometimes I have a good idea. Sometimes I draw a whole page and kind of fill in the dialogue after. It just depends.
Does it ever feel overwhelming having all of that on you? With no collaborative efforts anywhere, it's just all you.
No.
Yeah.
No,
that's the way you want it.
It's a good sense of freedom, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's like that control freak part of me comes in, because if I had to count on somebody else to write all of that, I would be the worst person to collaborate with, because I would just constantly be offering suggestions. And
so how he's mentioned how everybody beats him up at work all day long. Yeah, right here. That's exactly what would happen. So just think about that, Kevin. Just think about that.
Right.
But I have to ask, do you tend to be a more of a Marvel guy, a DC guy, or other? Or do you fall in that other category where there's just comics that you really love that aren't inside either one of the big names?
Yeah, it's definitely when I was a kid, Marvel all the way. I was into Spider-Man, X-Men, but because again they had the artists. Like DC, it was like Gene Colan. Like there was no comparison, to like what Jim Lee was doing to like what any artist was doing at DC. For me, it wasn't even close. And then quickly thereafter, because of that, it became all Image all the time, right? And then from Image, it I would get some new Marvel stuff here and there, again depending on who was working on certain things, but I was kind of done just collecting a title. I was already down. I was in art school. My influences were opened up. There were other kids who were there who were into comics that I'd never seen before or heard of before. So I got to go on this kind of little journey and discover. And being downtown in Pittsburgh, going to school, there are just amazing comic shops in Pittsburgh. So this whole world of opportunity and choice was opened up to me that I just didn't know existed. So it's been a bit eclectic since then. And right now it's a lot of manga, lots and lots of manga. So
can you explain that to a person like myself? Because I don't know much of that concept of the art. The art's different to me, and I know it's a real hot artwork and publications and stuff like that, but I'm old school Marvel, and I do like a little DC, but to me, I don't know anything about that stuff.
Which stuff, Bubba? Like
just the Japanese manga stuff.
Manga.
I just to me it's more Japanese kinda, or the different approach on how they draw the face and stuff to me. But I'm like old school, like McFarlane and Lee, and Kirby and Romita Jr. and stuff like that. But it's very hard for me to get into it, and I see Marvel try to do a little bit of that, and I don't know. So
well, and it comes down it comes down to preference, and it got, because it wasn't like that early on, so it wasn't something I was immediately drawn to. It was certainly, it was the 90s when I was in high school, so it was definitely becoming like a huge influence within American mainstream comics, right? Like Joe Mad came out with, he was doing X-Men and started doing Battle Chasers. That was a huge just like gut punch on like a big manga influence in a very American kind of setting. And there are lots of other examples kind of that along the way. But it was a long time before I really kind of got into a lot of it. And a lot of the stuff that I'm reading now is stuff from the 80s and 90s that just, I mean, there's, I have a bunch of, like Battle Angel Alita stuff. This is from the 90s. Viz is doing like these Fist of the North Star reprints, which are just like these they're fantastic. Like I've been getting these. I mean, there's so much stuff. But I think a lot of it was hearing those guys like Rob Liefeld talked a lot about manga influence. When you go and look at his stuff from that period, you can see it. Like if you look at it through that lens, lots of speed lines, a lot of storytelling, elements that kind of get torn down now. And yeah, a lot of the storytelling isn't the best and can be downright confusing in places. But he was also trying to interpret what was kind of happening, that he was seeing, and bringing that influence over to the work that he was doing. Frank Miller was another one, right? I mean, huge manga influence on Frank Miller. Changed the course of his career with starting with Daredevil and then moving into Ronin when he got a chance to work on that. Big French and Japanese, huge European and Japanese influence on Frank Miller. And I think I just kind of saw a lot of that because I would hunt down these interviews with these guys and try to find as much information as I could as I got older and the internet became more available and some of these things were more available. It just, I could kind of see how it was bleeding into their work, and it made me want to seek some of it out. There's a lot of garbage manga out there, just like there's a lot of garbage American comics out there, right? So it's not just a blanket statement that I love manga as a whole. I'm pretty specific with the kind of manga that I like, but at the same time, it feels different than American comics. Like manga feels different than American comics, than feel different from European comics, and they all kind of have this. The flow of each one is different, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. But I enjoy, that seeing the kind of different interpretations of how to tell a story with pictures and boxes on a page. There are so many ways to do it. And, some of it is an acquired taste, but once I kind of broke through that barrier of some of this kind of looked weird and not what I was used to seeing, but man, some of the solutions they came up with, because I'm looking at it from like, how are they solving this problem, right? And the problem is like how to tell a story, how to convey an emotion. And there's so many different ways to do it. And that was just, and it continues to be just fascinating to me. It's why I think comics are just the best.
Well, you explained it to me, and I appreciate that. And you gave a great explanation for that, because I had no idea in certain parts of that genre. And I do have a couple of the X-Men when they did stuff like that. But I mean, I appreciate what you just said. So you saying that, I gained a little bit more knowledge, which I didn't have before. So I totally appreciate that.
It's that artist perspective that, somebody like I wouldn't know. Bubba, you dabble into drawing and stuff a little bit. I can't even trace and make it look good. But no, hey, in Cable, I don't know if you remember this, but I did win an art contest in high school. I just have the Art Expo, and I created the logo, and it won. I'm just saying. But anyway, it's just like playing basketball. I haven't shot hoops in a while, and I'm terrible. But I made All Stars as a kid, right? It's something like you alluded to earlier. You got to keep at it. But no, that's an interesting process, and you gave us that kind of the artist perspective that, like I said, I wouldn't really notice. But I have to ask, you mentioned a lot of artists and a lot of comic books within, so far. So yeah. give us your top favorite comic book. Maybe it's a comic book, maybe it's a comic series. You can even name a couple if you'd like, but yeah.
So I'm going to have to break it down a little bit. All right. So maybe some of my favorite manga, and Bubba, I would recommend some of this to you, because what you're reacting to, and I don't know the exact artist you're talking about, so I feel that I can be disparaging without being personally attacking anybody, because I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
So-
that's okay. No,
So,
that's okay.
so I'll say, I think what happens.
We usually don't either.
No, these two
Good point,
attack
Cable.
me all the time, Kevin.
It's self-inflicted most of the time.
Sometimes. But
and not that I'm attacking you, but attacking the artist who drew the issue that you're talking about. I don't know what they were asked to do or who the artist even is.
Okay.
But I think what I see a lot of times is you'll have a title like an X-Men, right? And they'll bring in a manga style guy who can do that style. And it's like a half measure, right? It's kind of something that isn't the real thing, but it's trying to be. And sometimes that just, I would say most times it just doesn't quite hit the mark. The real thing is what you want to go for, right? Like if you want to know about manga, like just pick up, and they're not that expensive. Pick up the Akira series. Like read that. And the thing about manga is kind of the soap opera epicness of those titles, right? And it's to its detriment sometimes. Some of these things, like One Piece, like that's been going on for 20 years, right? Now, how that differs from like X-Men going on for 50 years is there's one person or one team of people doing it for those 20 years. Right. But it seemingly never ends. So some of it gets repetitive and kind of gets caught in this cycle, and it just makes money, and it's eventually kind of loses its appeal. But there are other more finite series that are large in scope, right? I mentioned Battle Angel Alita before. That first series of that, it tells an epic story. And the vision is very singular because you're getting the voice and kind of outlook of one creator. Just making this thing. So I would start with Akira. That's a no-brainer for me. Is if you're trying to understand manga.
okay. We just don't have a lot. We don't have any of that in my local comic book store. It's just the basic. But I mean, I do go to Pittsburgh.
They do have a little bit because
do they?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. My Hero's manga, right? I mean, it's not.
Yes.
Right. It's not the most artistic version of it, I would imagine, but
Right.
my boy loves My Hero from the anime, so then he started picking up the books. But
I mean, I'll look. I'm open-minded, Kevin. I'll look at stuff. But for also with me, when I like comic books and I'm so used to the artist, I don't like it when they switch up, and I know they have to take a break because they do a lot of stuff and they do a couple issues with a guest artist, and then if they come back or sometimes they leave. Like it's so disheartening for me being a collector and being a reader, because I do read all my stuff. That is what I truly miss. Like I don't like change.
Well, I think we should do a video where we watch Bubba read a manga because
and then
you don't know this about him, but he's dyslexic. So
I'm just not too many shots to the head, man.
But
look, I read all these.
Yeah.
I can't read a novel, but I'll read comic books to the day I die.
Manga work back to front.
I know that. Thank you.
Okay.
See,
that's why I thought.
I didn't know that. But I don't, like I said, I have some comic books. I'm pretty selective. Like obviously, I love Star Wars, Spider-Man, Captain America. Those are my guys. But Kevin, you got to answer my question, man. You didn't answer the question.
So I'll say
getting off that easy.
That's okay. So from manga standpoint, Katsuhiro Otomo does Akira right up there, and there are other manga artists who are up there as well. But we'll gloss over those for now since we're not totally feeling that at the moment. But I will say, like unashamedly, the Image guys for sure. There's Eric Larson, chief among them. For a number of reasons, most of which I've touched on already. Mike Mignola, Hellboy, is one of my favorite all-time characters, and just creator-owned, singular vision kind of guys for sure. Frank Miller, like I said, I went through a huge Frank Miller stage. Frank Miller is great because there's so many he has reinvented himself several times over the course of his career. So there's kind of a Frank Miller flavor of the month club that, you know, you can kind of like get whatever version of Frank Miller you really like.
His miniseries, Wolverine miniseries, is one of the all-time greatest.
Yeah,
so.
and I love pretty much every iteration of Frank Miller. Just absolutely phenomenal. One of you guys mentioned Romita Jr. Love Romita Jr., especially like Armor Wars 2, you know, his Punisher stuff. Armor Wars 2 is probably my favorite JR just of all time. Those are some early comics that I had, and you know, lost the covers off those just due to wear and tear. You know, Paul Pope is another one. Kevin Eastman, you know, Ninja Turtles. And then there's some newer guys. So some of the newer guys that I absolutely love. Michelle Fife does a book called Copra. If anybody doesn't read that, that is highly recommended. Daniel Warren Johnson talked about him. Andrew McLean does Headlopper. That's a really funny, like it's like a Conan the Barbarian kind of style fantasy, you know, but he's really good. And James Herron, you know, does Rumble and currently working on. He's done some Hellboy like BPRD stuff, and then he did. I think that was his first break. Then he did Rumble and does Ultra Mega right now, which is just absolutely bonkers. So good. So yeah, super bloody, lots of action, and it's just totally nuts. So that would be one I would recommend.
Okay, so who's your top 5 favorite superheroes?
Superheroes, that's tough, you know, because like I said, I don't necessarily follow, you know, the heroes themselves, but I mean, if I would definitely say, you know, Hellboy, Savage Dragon, you know, we'll put you know, like Lee and Claremont's version of X-Men in there.
That was a good run. I have that whole run. It was very good. The iconic Captain America, Black Widow, Wolverine issue it's phenomenal.
That was my first. Okay, so I'm so glad you brought that up. That was my first comic ever. Okay.
Oh wow.
And that was I was so confused because if you remember that issue, it's a flashback of Wolverine fighting Nazis dressed like Indiana Jones. And I was like, what the hell is going on? I didn't understand what was happening, right? He's got the fedora. He's got the leather jacket. I think he's got a whip. I think Wolverine's got a whip.
I think he does too.
And he like jumps through the front windshield of like a Rolls Royce with Nazis in it and like kicks a dude in the face. And then meets Captain America and they fight each other for a minute, shake hands. And then, you know, it's back in present day. Totally flabbergasted as a child, but loved every second of that issue. And it's one of my, you know, it's just one of my favorites. It's so good.
Well, I got a question for you that I got to get in, you know, before we go anywhere else. I got to hear this from you because we don't get this perspective very often. Coming from your standpoint of having a huge passion for comics and drawing and things like that, how do you feel about where superhero movies are these days? Because that's very divisive, especially online. You know, some people like to shit on stuff just to be negative and shit on stuff.
And do you watch them?
Yeah.
Do you keep up with, you know, the new superhero movies and even you know, shows? Or
is that not your thing?
No, I do. Again, it's probably not all of it. Like there was definitely a point with the Marvel stuff, and I'm probably, you know. So first of all, as far as like the internet, like just handle with care, right? Like that's
just like Kevin, you handle with care.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm not, because look, these are things like it's modes of entertainment. I'm not going to begrudge anybody for liking anything. Like if it speaks to you for whatever reason, like that, it validates it in my mind to you, right? Like I would never just impart my opinion about something on any one of you or anybody else because I like it and you don't, and you're ridiculous and missing out. You know, it's such a personal thing, and it can you can attach it to your own heart for so many different reasons, right? So when it comes to superhero movies, I'm probably I'm probably like Marvel's perfect audience for it because I enjoy them for what they are as movies. And I think you have to sort of divorce yourself and just treat it as its own thing. And I think, I don't know if I'm speaking to anybody here. I hope not. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers, but
no, that's mostly the take that stance I take on it.
So it can be easy for us to say, well, they've disregarded, X years of history or whatever else, right?
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
And I know, that it can be, and I think part of it too is like, and Bubba, you're older than us, right? Like it wasn't cool, like it is now. Yeah, right. It wasn't.
But I was already told, Kevin, one of my good buddies, God bless his soul, Chuck Stockdale, rest in peace. He always told me that they always had the best storyline. They already had the script from the comic book to get the movies right. Yes. So they didn't have to go a different way. They always had the script. All they had to do was follow the comic book, and the movies could be just made. Right.
Well, tell that to the Dark Phoenix saga, though.
Well, they didn't do that right.
Yeah, and so there are definitely some, like, I love, I really enjoyed, like the Marvel Universe stuff, regardless of what Scorsese says or whatever. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, when I want to watch, a higher form of art, I can go consume that via a different kind of movie. I don't just listen to classical music all the time either, right? Sometimes I really want to listen to Weezer, and that's in the moment, right? So, movies to me are no different in that regard. I don't feel that they should feel beholden in all instances to what's happening in the comic. And I think the Marvel movies did a really good job of being pretty faithful to a lot of things that I think a lot of fans would say they should. And in other places where they have to trim things either for runtime or just continuity's sake or whatever else, I think they did a really fair job with a lot of that. There was also a place like where I definitely had burnout after a while, so like right before, probably like around the Black Panther movie or something, I was just like, man, I can't, there's like 3 of these a year. Like I can't, like I finished out like the Avengers stuff and then kind of didn't continue with a lot of the stuff that came after. But
and to your point, Kevin, to what Bubba alluded to earlier, my stance is, do I go see a concert to see the band perform live? And, if I wanted to, I could just listen to them on an album. And if they sound just like the album, what's the point of me going to the concert, right? So, same kind of thing. If it's exactly like the comic book, I'll just go buy the comic book, So I get the approach, of kind of why they do that. Sometimes I do wish they'd stick to the comics a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I'm used to this 1970s stuff where they didn't have any special effects and they had crappy actors and they had all that stuff. So, I mean, I'm so happy that we get to see this and escape to go to the movies or watch the movies of any superhero movies, because it is a dawn of superheroes like I've never seen in my entire life.
Yeah, it's a golden era for it. And I guess I didn't articulate this real well, but kind of what I was getting at with that question also is, how does it make you feel as a person, coming from the comic background, to see, like, you watch Thor Ragnarok and you can't help but feel, wow, now I'm blanking on his name. He's the comic book worked with Stan Lee.
Jack Kirby.
Yeah, you can't help but feel like some of his aesthetic and designs in Thor Ragnarok, like they really went for it. But if so as a comic book person, you kind of got to love where they're at right now, with the freedom, because they've been embraced, like you said. It wasn't popular at one point, but now it's the most popular thing out there. So they have that license to just be as wacky and out there as they want. So I would imagine, as a comic book art person, that is enjoyable to see.
It's also a weird place to be, right? Like Bubba, I was going to ask you before. I mean, it was something that for so long, it wasn't something that was celebrated, right? Like you found comics, you're enjoying comics and things, and
You didn't tell many people back in the
Right.
early '80s. Believe me.
Right. And so I think that's where you get. Again, it's like most things. There are two sides to it. So on the negative side, you have a group of people who are kind of shunned for this practice, right? And that kind of are put in a corner. And so when light is shed upon them, eventually they don't know what to do, and we don't know how to kind of play nice with others sometimes, right? The good side of it is that you kind of, you're in this group of people who enjoy the same thing that you enjoy, and it kind of breaks down all of those barriers as far as like whatever your background is, or like all of the best things do that, right? Whether it's sports or comics or movies or whatever, you kind of center around this thing. And I don't care what your background is or who your parents are or whatever. Like, we like this thing, we can bond over this thing, and eventually it becomes something bigger and better. That's what I love about comics. And so, yeah, there's a part of me that enjoys seeing, some of these superheroes, be kind of brought into the light and have it be really popular. The funny thing is, it hasn't helped Marvel sales at all, comic book wise.
Right.
No.
Really, I didn't know that. That's
It's terrible.
Yeah. So like it's not doing that. So for me, again, going back to Eric Larson, I would just want to make the comic, like I would, like, that stuff's nice. I'm glad for it. There's also that part of me that was in the corner before, that with my couple of other friends who were into comics like I was, who doesn't care about anybody else. And like, and that's like the dark part of it, where it's just like, no, I want to make my thing over here. I don't care about anybody else. Right. So you kind of have to fight that a little bit. So yeah, maybe it's ultimately a good thing,
But if you, we're not going to hold you too much longer here, Kev. But if you had to pick, like last week, we did our top 5, each of our preferences for top 5 Marvel movies,
and honorable mentions,
But don't even ask how that went.
Yeah.
Some of us it went better than others.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you want to know, tune in. Whoever's watching, tune in. It's a good time.
Yeah.
I always say, come laugh with us. You will get a good laugh.
Yep.
But yeah, so if you had to pick one of those movies that you really enjoyed from Marvel, which one would it be?
Yeah, I Winter Soldier is a really good
choice.
One.
Yeah, that was in my top 5.
Yeah, I think that one's my favorite. I think Civil War is really good. The first Avengers movie is excellent. I mean, honestly, I think the quality of like those core Marvel movies are so good. But for my money, Winter Soldier kind of hits all the right notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is your son old enough to go and see those movies?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's probably fun. That's an event.
Oh, he's hugely into that.
Cable and I, when we go, his son's old enough to go see them and enjoy them, so that's always fun to see his reaction as well.
His first movie ever in the theater was Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he's very tied to that. When you mentioned Civil War, when they get to that airport scene and you're watching this, are you just like, well, this is a splash page in live action? Like that's.
Yeah, it's just absolutely incredible. I mean, it's essentially an Avengers movie, but it's just cool. I mean, those two are probably my go-tos. I think those are just really fantastic Marvel movies. Really like those.
Did you happen to see the last Spider-Man movie?
No, I
Kevin, what?
My in-laws took my son to see it.
Okay.
You know what? I wasn't super excited about, because I didn't like the second one, the one with Jake Gyllenhaal. I was not feeling that one.
Wow. Well, if you have a chance, go see it and let Gary know what your thoughts are.
Okay.
I'm very inquisitive on your thoughts on that, being a comic book guy.
Okay.
It's actually, I believe it's supposed to hit digital next month already.
Oh, really?
Is it really? No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, it made as much money as it needed to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But no, I'm sure that was a nice break for you. You know, you and your wife probably got a chance to go do something with.
Yeah, it was nice.
So I'm sure. But you have to see it, man. You definitely have to see
Can I ask one question?
Yeah,
and,
you can.
And Kevin,
Well,
is,
Kevin, you stated something about the Marvel comic books not doing as good as the movies. Now, do you have a funny feeling that publications of the print hopefully never goes away? Because I don't ever want it to go away. But also, they also reboot everything every other year, which is very, very mind-boggling to me in the Marvel concept, because that's really the only comic books that I do get. And I used to get Savage Dragon, and I do get Spawn now, but that to me is, there's no reboots in Image with Spawn or Savage Dragon like there is in the Marvel, and I don't know why they do that, and they do that to try to get there's number ones or what. I don't have any idea why they do that, but I wanted your take on that real quick.
It's a good question, Bubs.
Yeah, it's probably the most cynical that I'm going to be.
That's okay.
But I mean, but honestly, truth be told, it's because there are a bunch of bankers running a publication that they don't understand. I think that, like, if you want the honest truth from me, I think that they're pandering to their audience. I think that the product that they're putting on the shelf is not subservient to the end user, right? Okay. And so that's something, like, that's the marketer in me, selling.
No, I understand that, because I'm a huge Incredible Hulk.
Yeah,
and Incredible Hulk with the Immortal Hulk, and they quit it after 50, and it was a great series from 1 to 50, and now they just did it and they rebooted it. I don't understand.
Because I'm sure there's some data somewhere on somebody's desk that shows, once you start over with a number one or start fresh with something, that you'll capture more readers, right? Like Todd McFarlane would talk about that when he talked about, his Spider-Man #1 selling gangbusters, and he would always lament that Marvel would put all of this effort behind that #1, and then by the time #2 came along, they're on to something else, even then. And it was just always something that was so frustrating to him. And I see that same mentality. And again, I'm very removed from Marvel and DC and those kind of practices. What you just described, Bubba, is something why I follow creators, right? Like, I want to look for something like Michel Fife's Copra is one of the best superhero comics that isn't really a superhero comic. And he was at Image for a minute, and then he self-published on his own through Etsy. Right. So now when I buy his comics, like, he just put up a year subscription for $40. You get, 5 issues or something for this coming year. And he makes them himself. He staples them himself. He mails them to my house.
Wow.
He's doing everything in that comic. And I know what I'm getting when I get it. And it's awesome.
Which is kind of the model that you want to do too.
Right. That's what I'm after. These guys at Marvel running the show, like, and even some of the creative teams, like, they're jobber guys. They're there just to get, a pay, and they're on to something else. Like, I want what you're describing is that lack of passion, dedication, commitment. Yeah. Like, that is what, to me, that's what I'm hoping to one day be able to deliver. But as a consumer of some comics, that's what I'm looking for sure.
Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like I said, you kind of opened, well, my eyes at least. I'm not going to speak for these two, to a whole different aspect of to comics. Oh,
he did. He did. The couple of those topics, it did open my eyes, and I want to check out some of the stuff that Kevin talked about to actually read and try to get it. Now I will go to Pittsburgh and other stuff to check it out, or look online or whatever. But something totally different, because it's not about the graphic novels is what some of the movies are made of. So graphic novels is good too. Comic books, any type of good storylines and good artwork is where I'm what I'm all about.
And the stuff that I mentioned that Fife is doing with Copra, if you don't want to do the Etsy route, Image does do collections. Like, they collected, he has,
I think they have a lot of those, Cable, at the comic book store. A lot of Image.
So he had, and I think the first one is like upstairs right now, but like Bergen Street did these. Now these are great because these are like soft cover, and
that's fine.
They have, he's got this dude that looks like the Punisher. How rad is that?
That is rad.
It's so cool.
Wow.
And his stuff is just, it's crazy inventive. I know this is like captivating for your podcast listeners, me showing this comic book to you.
No. We
No,
also have
cool.
video. We also have video too.
Yeah.
But it's so inventive. But Image reprinted all of these.
Okay.
And they're currently taking every new issue that he's doing, and they'll collect those in whatever 6-issue trades or something like they typically do.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
It's pretty available. But yeah, I'd be happy to shoot over a list to you guys after. If you put it in your show notes or something, get some of these things out there. But yeah, I can just give you my reading list and go from there. But
yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, we could put it out there.
I appreciate it because you're giving me different stuff because I'm getting stuff that's getting rebooted, like Silver Surfer's coming out. Oh, yay. Everything's getting rebooted, and it's just not the only thing, Kevin, that super interests me because I've been a huge Incredible Hulk and Spider-Man collector in the Avengers, but realistically, Star Wars with Vader has actually been very, very, very good with the many volumes that they've had. But that is like the only thing, and I don't know what they're trying to do anymore. I really don't. With the X-Men, they reboot them every 12 issues. Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, if it and some do you guys watch cartoonist kayfabe at all on YouTube?
No,
no, I do not.
So I would highly recommend that. And the best thing about it, it's 2, sometimes 3 Pittsburgh cartoonists. You got Jim Rugg, who does Street Angel, and he's doing Hulk Monster, which is kind of like very similar to Ed Piskor's X-Men Grand Design. If you probably know that, right? So Ed's a Pittsburgh guy. I don't know these guys. I'm not.
Oh, I was going to ask. That was going to be one of my questions. Do you guys have like a network of people that like support each other, like a community of practice type of thing, or you just know of them in their work?
So these guys are actually doing it. They're super successful. I am not claiming any allegiance to them because I don't want them feeling like I'm trying to piggyback off them and all that. I don't know them at all. But what I will say is Jim has been cool to me. I've DM'd him a couple of times, and Ed. They're super responsive. Again, not claiming any allegiance or friendship with these guys.
I know Ed's brother pretty good.
Yeah, they're doing their thing and they're good. But they have a YouTube channel, super successful. They just talk about all things comics. It started with them going through issues of Wizard, just page by page, and talking about it. And then the channel just kind of branched off from there. And they have, it's right up your guys' alley. You could spend hours going down this rabbit hole. It's a couple years old, so there's tons of content. But you will learn stuff and be exposed to artists and books that you've never heard of before. It is absolutely phenomenal. But they love it all. They'll talk about the most obscure thing that you've never heard of, and then they'll be talking about Ramita Jr. So it's a fantastic channel. Local Pittsburgh guys can't recommend it enough.
What's the name of it again, Kevin?
Cartoonist kayfabe.
Cartoonist kayfabe. Okay, gotcha.
Like wrestling.
Wrestling jargon.
They're super into wrestling. You're going to get some wrestling jargon.
That's
down our alley.
We kind of know a little bit about that stuff. A little bit.
Yeah.
So, but any more questions for Kevin before we kind of get into the wrap up here?
One more.
Sure.
Can you please tell me Jack's arm? What is wrong with Jack's arm, and what is?
Do you not want to give it away?
No. I'm looking at the picture, that's all I know, and it's just not like a normal arm, is it? Because I don't know any of the background, and I'm kind of inquisitive about that.
See?
Yes,
this needs to happen, man. You got some viewers already.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I don't know the origin of it. Maybe one day it will be revealed to me. I don't know. What I can say is it is his one hand is made up of 3 tentacles.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So yeah.
Okay, I can't wait because I'm very inquisitive of the characters, and I like backstory. And I'll wait around.
No, but Kevin, take it as an honor. We're, like I said, I was intrigued. And I kind of, passed it along to these guys, and I knew they were intrigued. And I didn't even be honest with you. Like I said, we hit it off. We had the same sense of humor and all that good stuff. But I didn't know if you'd take me seriously and want to actually come and do this. No. But we're glad you did. You gave us a new perspective. We learned a lot. But before we get out of here, we always ask a couple questions at the end, and it's rapid fire, and I call it rapid fire 5. So there's 5 questions. Some of them are goofy, some of them maybe a little bit more serious, but first thing that comes into your head. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll try to do more rapid than that first question game. Started. That was brutal. But
no worries.
Go for it.
No worries. Okay. So name one thing that's always stocked in your fridge.
Hot sauce.
Okay. Good answer. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Flight.
Okay.
Why? Why?
There goes the rapid part. But no, go ahead. Answer it. Answer it. Yeah.
The rapid part was derailed already. That's okay. Yeah. You get to fly. How?
Yeah,
okay.
Get places quickly.
That's
don't have to pay for parking, right?
Yeah. Right.
The idea of flight is funny to me because, like, in the movies and stuff, people learn to fly and you think how cool it would be to fly. But then actually put yourself in that, like, the first time you take off and you're flying through the air, you're going to be scared shitless. I mean, eventually you'll get used to it, but you never think of that, or you never see that in the movies or anything.
You see it in The Greatest American Hero because he could never fly because he didn't read the book.
Yeah. Actually, I'm like, what I'm envisioning is I want to freak out all the people on the ground. Right? So that's what I want to do. But I also don't want to hurt anybody. Like my 11-year-old asked me that yesterday. If you could have a superpower, what would it be? I said, I would fly. He said, I'd have like electric powers, be able to shoot laser beams. And I'm like, to what end? What are you going to do?
That's hilarious. You're having this conversation like at a dinner table or something. I can't wait to have those.
They're fun, Gary.
Yeah. Mine's only 3, but he loves Spider-Man. He loves Groot, and all of a sudden, the Flash is like a new thing for him. I don't know, but anyway, yeah. Kevin, knowing you, I knew you wouldn't want to like read minds or anything. That wouldn't be good for you. But yeah, no, I think flight's a good one.
If I want to read minds, just go work for Google or something.
There you go.
You just can't do that without superpowers.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
I'm sure my phone will be feeding me some interesting ads after this conversation.
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So who is the most influential person in your career? So that could be artist career or whatever, just in general, or it could be in your life. It could be a family member, whoever. Just who influenced you, who makes it happen for you every day that you get up and you're inspired.
Yeah, I'll go the classic route and say my wife for sure. She's very supportive and has supported me all along the course of my professional career, and is very supportive of and gives me the time that is required to work on some of these side projects. So
yeah, because some people don't get that.
No, and it is a huge time commitment, and she's just a total pro about it. She's so supportive. So definitely appreciate it.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming your dad has to be up there somewhere too, because he kind of started it all, right?
Yeah. 100%. So yeah, love that guy. He's great.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. If you could pick one theme song to describe your life, what song would it be and why? So I noticed you have a record player back there, I think, right?
Yeah.
A record player. So what's on the record player first, but then answer the question.
Okay. So right now there's a little David Bowie on the record player.
Okay. Is that like your sketching music? Like, is there a?
Yeah. You know what, man? It's a wide range. Boy, What was the question? Theme song? If I could pick one theme song.
So if you had to pick a song to describe your life, not the thong, the song. Yeah, the song.
Could be the thong song.
The thong song. That's a really good point.
Listen, Cisco is a national treasure. It will not be the thong. Okay, so.
But if you had one song that would describe you, maybe your life, maybe you personally, whatever, what would it be?
Oh my goodness, that's a phenomenal question. And like my love of comics and my love of music is so eclectic and far-reaching. You know what? I'm going to pick an album title, and you will understand why. It's Oasis's first album, definitely maybe, because I can't come to a great answer. So
I actually like that's a good answer.
Yeah.
That's a really good answer. I like that. Actually.
We'll go with that. Okay.
I'll let you off the hook just because that's a good one.
Okay. Judges accept. I like it.
Absolutely. So one more question. So out of all of your accomplishments, what would you like to be known for?
Just being a good leader for my family. And again, it's the maybe easy answer, but truthfully, and I'm going to get sentimental on you guys, we're about to close. I feel like we got to know each other really well over the course of this conversation. So I'm going to lay it on you. It's, I love this stuff like you guys do. Right. But at the end of the day, those are the things that really matter. And, as a husband, as a father, you got to handle those people with care, and I'll bring it all the way down. Yeah. And I'll just say that's the legacy. Those are the people that you affect the most. I look at the people who are closest to me, my parents, my wife. Those are the people that helped build me into the person that I am today, for better, for worse, hopefully for better. But if I could do that for the people that I love the most, nothing better, man.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, love that answer. Hopefully you have some room for some friends in there too, and you can be a friend of the podcast here. Yes. You see, like how I tied that together.
I love it.
Yeah, so definitely, Kevin. Like I said, I can't say I know you all that well, but I knew right off the bat, from the second we talked, that you were definitely a guy that I would like. So yes, thank you for coming on. Real quickly, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you just show us like one or two of those pictures you have laying on the desk?
Yeah, man.
Do you mind? You said nobody would ever see them, but I'd like to see one or two.
Boy, thank you so much, Kevin. It was very enlightening. I learned a lot, and I'm very intrigued, and I want to see your work, and I want to buy your work. And thank you for coming on the show. No, I mean
no pressure, but
no pressure. I mean I'll be around, but I mean thank you for coming on the Triple B Experience and actually expressing a love for comic books, which I love comic books like no other. It's one of my passions, and I appreciate your passion too, and the artwork and being an artist in the local area. And God bless you, and I wish you the best. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. You know what? Comics are the best. They're the, in my opinion, the movies. It just nothing compares to comics. They're totally unique, very personal, and I just appreciate you guys having me on. So. So what do I got here? I got a couple.
We got drum rolls.
So this is like some stuff to like get the juices flowing. That's Jack, a giant bounty hunter.
Nice.
That is awesome.
It is
like incorporating a lot of type into
that is awesome.
That's fucking pretty good, and I'm allowed to swear in my podcast. Oh my god, that's fucking good too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. What is that?
Wow, is that the bounty hunter?
Yeah, that's Linus.
Okay,
so cool.
That is awesome.
Wow, that's woo.
Hey, Kevin, okay.
Member of Jack's crew, his bounty hunting crew.
Oh, I like that little skull on the shirt there.
Yeah. Always fun. Yeah, man. It's just
that's phenomenal. Thank you for showing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if you you have any of those that's laying around that you don't want or something, just autograph it, sign it to Gary, and I'll have it hanging on the wall in the back. But please know you can use this as an outlet anytime. Just let us know, if anything, comes of your work and you get that website up, which we hope you do. We will support you. And like I said, feel free to come on. Thank you so much.
Eventually, when the Kevin Hilliker Omnibus is available down the road, we'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It's going to be, about this thick, like the whole Marvel backlog, Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet, all those combined. We'll be look back at this and be like, oh, we were there at the beginning.
Yeah, just remember us little people, buddy.
Yeah, and when you get set up at the Steel City Con and you have like a booth and you're doing stuff, and we walk by, we're like, "Hey, Kev, what's up?
Remember us?
Hey, wait,
It's-
you
It'll
guys
be like, get lost, guys.
yeah, get out of here.
I don't know
Tell them- I know you
Security.
keep walking.
No, Kevin, again, we appreciate you. Any plugs you want to plug, anything going on that you're working on, whether that's comics, not comics, anything, if you want to give a shout out to your family, that's fine too. Whatever you want to do, feel free. Go ahead and do that now.
Floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Definitely, if anybody wants to check out my Instagram, it's at Kevin Hilliker. Most of my stuff there. It's been quiet for a little bit, but there's enough there to kind of scroll through, and
there's a lot.
There's going to be more coming soon. So yeah, it's been quiet because I've just been head down working on it. So there will be some stuff to share soon, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
No,
and I
thank
mean that.
you.
Like I said, anything you want to draw me, it'll go up.
You got it, brother.
Just sign it, and hey, let me know next time you're in the office. We'll do lunch, okay?
That sounds great.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to run the outro, and we're going to get out of here. So here we go.